Do you remember this? Ultimately, Southern whites were furious about the new laws that protected blacks. They feared that freed African Americans would gain power in Southern politics. So Southern states resisted any new laws any way they could. The stage was set for racial clashes in Southern society. White Southerners resisted changes to society any way they could. As America moved forward in the Gilded Age, African Americans faced dark times in the Jim Crow South. The Jim Crow South referred to Jim Crow laws. These laws enforced segregation. Segregation is the act of separating people based on secondary characteristics and criteria. In the American South, it was separation by race. Jim Crow laws enforced segregation of black and white people in both public and private facilities.
Southern states passed measures to take votes away from blacks. The first such measure was the poll tax. With the poll tax, you had to pay a tax in order to vote. Typically, white voters could afford the poll tax, while black voters were unable to afford it, thus keeping them from voting.
Another measure used to keep blacks from voting was literacy tests. White and black voters had to pass a literacy test in order to prove that they could read before they could vote. Usually, African American voters were given harder tests to guarantee that they would fail. Look at the sample questions provided. Spell backwards forwards. Print the word vote upside down, but in the correct order. A lot of these questions are confusing, even for us today. Imagine an illiterate African American sharecropper trying to figure out these questions in order to vote. Under pressure, it'd be nearly impossible to do.
The final measure used to keep blacks from voting was the grandfather clause. The grandfather clause exempted you from the poll tax or the literacy test if your grandfather or father voted before 1867. This clause was intentionally set up so African Americans could not vote because in 1867 the 15th Amendment was passed, which allowed African Americans to vote. There is no way that an African American could have voted before the year 1867.
The Gilded Age also gave us one of the most significant Supreme Court case rulings in the history of the United States. Plessy versus Ferguson, 1896. Since the end of the Civil War, the United States Supreme Court had looked the other way on the unconstitutional anti-black laws in the South. In 1896, the Supreme Court decided to hear a case that challenged segregation in the South, based on the 14th Amendment, the equal protection under the law regardless of race. In their ruling, the Supreme Court established the principle of separate but equal. Through this principle, the Supreme Court judged that African Americans were not denied their citizenship rights because they were provided the same services as whites, even if those services were provided in a separate setting. For example, no African American in the South could say that they are being denied their citizenship right to education, because although they had to go to separate all-black schools away from whites, they were still being provided an education. Ultimately, the effect of Plessy versus Ferguson is that segregation was ruled legal and constitutional. This ruling ensured that segregation and discrimination in the South would be protected by law in the United States for another 60 years.
The legacy of separate but equal and the Jim Crow South basically creates two Americas, white and black. Southern states continued denying blacks their natural rights, facilitating racial discrimination until the 1950s. This left African Americans unprotected from violent retaliation for resisting discrimination.
With segregation and racial discrimination protected by law, it would be another 50 years before the Civil Rights Movement would be able to correct the wrongs of the Jim Crow South.
Free at last! Free at last!